Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Soul of the War. My name is Alexis Branch, and today, for our candidate spotlight, we will be interviewing Chris Stevenson. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Soul of the War. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about how a bill becomes a law strictly within the state of Maryland. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Soul of the War. My name is Alexis Branch, and today, for our candidate spotlight, we will be interviewing Chris Stevenson. This is a platform for people of faith like me to speak freely on faith and politics. While I see you all too. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Alexis.
Of course, of course. So can you state your name, what you're running for, how old you are, where were you raised?
Absolutely. My name is Christopher Stevenson. I'm running for state delegate for District 24. I am 31 years old, and I was raised in both in Prince George's County as well as a little bit of time in California.
Nice. When did you move to Prince George's County?
When I was about 6 or 7 years old.
Okay. How'd that transition happen?
I come from very humble beginnings. My mother is Mexican, my father is black, and my mother and I, we grew up in poverty, to be very frank, and it was a very rough time for us. Many struggles came from that. But my grandmother, the great woman she is, she actually came and got me from the type of situation that I was in and raised me in Prince George's County after that. So I like to say that I'm Prince George's County through and through, and I think many would agree with all the pride that I have for the county.
Amen. I agree. Are you a person of faith? Do you attend church?
Absolutely. I'm a Catholic, but just being a Catholic to me, it means that I just don't have to necessarily attend Catholic church. I think if you are a spiritual person, you're a Christian, which I consider myself, you can attend. Some of my friends go to Baptist church, and sometimes I go with them, and sometimes I go to Catholic service as well.
Nice. Okay, question. You're the first Catholic person I'm interviewing on this platform, and this is awesome because it gives me an opportunity to, speak more about your faith and learn more, honestly. Is there, you all do use the Bible in Catholic church?
We do.
Okay, so is there like a verse that you would say has like moved you and gotten you through and strengthened you?
That's a really good question. There are a lot of verses in the Bible that I would say really appeal to me. More so than verses, I like to think about different stories in the Bible because it just shows how, as an individual, you can overcome, right, if you keep the faith. I have a personal journey myself where I had to keep the faith to overcome some of the complexities and things that just happen in life. So I care a little bit more about the different stories, but versus just very specific verses, because to me, I like to get the entire message versus just a part of it.
Awesome. Awesome. So what would you say is that story, that one story that sticks out to you in the Bible?
I would say Samson. Story of Samson sticks out to me. That's a strong story. I also think, the story of Moses as well is very powerful. But I think those would be my top two.
Nice. Okay. And those are great stories to pick as a person, like, of leadership and just holding your own and sticking to your word and not being, swayed in any way. So that's awesome. Great.
Thank you.
How did you get into politics?
That's a great question. It started with my grandmother. My grandmother, like I said, I was raised with her starting at the age of about 6, 7 years old. And she would always be in the community doing different things with our church, with community members, with our city. And, at first I used to ask her, why do I have to come with you to all these meetings, right? Why do I have to participate, right? When you're that small, you really just want to have fun all the time. But I started hanging around with her so much that it started to impact my own life, right? I started to see what impact what she was doing made on other people's lives. So it brought me closer to public service. On top of that, when I went off to high school, my dad's a doctor, and originally I wanted to go into medicine.
Nice.
But before that, I was thinking about, different avenues you can take, right? Because when you're young, you have so many options, and medicine was one of those. But then I started to do things that kind of led me down more of a public service route, right? For example, in high school, I was in student government. I was a class officer. I interned and worked for my congressman when I was in high school. So for me, it was just one of those things that even though I wanted to go down the medical route, the public service route kept calling my name.
Right, it was pulling on your heart, right?
It was. And I think, your passion and what you love doing is always going to find you.
Absolutely.
Right? You're going to be drawn to it no matter what. My grandmother, she would tell me, because like I said, I really wanted to go to med school. She would tell me all the time, she would say, Chris, even though you want to go to med school, God will open up your heart and he will show you where he wants to put you.
Absolutely.
And I'm a true believer of that. And it doesn't matter how much you fight it, it's going to happen the way he wants it to.
It's so crazy that you said all of that, because that is exactly like what I'm living right now. When I was in undergrad, my original major was journalism and media studies. And then I switched over to poli-sci because I'm like, I want to be the president of the United States. Like, how am I going to do that with a journalism degree?
Right.
And lo and behold, here I am, taking interviews and starting this platform. And it's just like, God definitely works in mysterious ways, but he always gets what he wants at the end of the day. So me running for office, I did follow his will in doing that and him telling me to run for office. But he obviously had other intentions with me running for office. Who's to say we would have met if I hadn't ran, right? And we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Right.
So God works in mysterious ways, and I applaud you. Thank you for following your heart, because this community definitely needs a servant like you.
Thank you.
So. What college did you go to?
The George Washington University.
And why didn't you go to an HBCU?
I love HBCUs. I have a lot of love for our HBCUs, and it was one of the choices that I had in my mind. But ultimately, I wanted to go to a school that concentrated on politics, right? Like I said, I was really, at the end of high school, I was really getting invested in the community and so forth. And I just, doing my research, George Washington University was a great school for politics and public service. They also have an amazing school for international affairs. So it kind of just had all the, I guess, the factors in a foundational basis of what I wanted to do. So, when I attended the George Washington University, I definitely don't regret it. And I definitely went to, Howard and other HBCUs to visit them because of course, it's right next door. I do wish that I did get that experience. And like I said, I have a lot of love for HBCUs. They groom, not just black people, but minorities so well. But I'm glad I made the decision to go to GW.
Nice, nice. Can you explain a little bit about your story when it comes to, you being sick in college and how you got through that, and just elaborate on how that has made you the man that you are today?
Yes. Well, it didn't start in college, right? It actually started when I was younger with my mother. I was actually diagnosed with diabetes when I was around 5, 6 years old. And my mother, because we struggled so much, my mother is a Mexican immigrant, and she was able to obtain her citizenship and everything. But the thing was, she just didn't know what to do, as a lot of other residents, even in our county, don't know what to do when it comes to trying to access health care or, how to just go on about doing normal things that people need to do in life, right, to get the resources that they require. So for her, and especially being an immigrant, she had a tough time, right? Her language, she only knew Spanish for a long period of time, so language was a barrier for her. And like I said, we struggled for a lot of different reasons, but that was one of them. But when it comes to my health, I was diagnosed with diabetes around that time. Like I said, obtaining health insurance and just medical coverage overall, which, you know, as a diabetic, everyone knows you need different medical devices and so forth and resources. So we had a tough time doing that. We had a very tough time doing that. When I got older and I went to the George Washington University, I started to feel, you know, some symptoms that I just didn't know what was going on with my body, right? I would feel weird sometimes, but, you know, when you're young, you kind of feel weird, but then you kind of just push it off. You don't take it that seriously. And after I graduated from undergrad, one day I went to the doctors and they told me my kidney levels were just really low. So, you know, time went on and, you know, they told me that I was going to have to go on dialysis and so forth. So that's what happened.
Well, how has that experience shaped you to the leader that you are now?
Well, I will tell you, Alexis, that time I was on dialysis for about 3 years, and that was a very dark time in my life. I think it took away my faith and it grew my faith at the same time. And I say that because when you experience something like kidney failure or any catastrophic healthcare disparity, right, it affects you mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in so many other ways that sometimes, you know, you give up faith, right? You give up faith because you give up hope and so forth, and it can lead you down that direction. But one of my mentors, I'll never forget it till this day, he called me and he said, Chris, you don't know when it's going to come, how it's going to come, who it's going to come from, but just know that it's going to come. And it did, right? And what I'm referring to is the kidney transplant. I was able to receive a kidney transplant from one of my fraternity brothers who I didn't even know, right? Which is a blessing in itself, right? Not too many people that you don't know are giving you kidneys right and left, but he did, and I'm so grateful to him. But to answer your question, it was the resiliency. It was the determination that I had that really impacted me, and I think I use that resiliency and determination to fight for the issues that I really care about. One of which, of course, is healthcare, right? I live in a district that has a lot of healthcare disparities, right? We have a lot of food deserts in my district. We have a lot of dialysis clinics in my district, but we don't have a lot of healthy grocery stores, right? We don't have a lot of healthy entities that really keep our constituents, and I say our because I represent the district on the Central Committee, our constituents as healthy as they can be. But it's not just a District 24 problem. It's not even just a Prince George's County problem, right? It's a marginalized community problem, and we have a lot of marginalized communities in the state, right? That is one big issue that I want to fight for.
Definitely. Wow. I mean, your story almost got me emotional. I mean, we've talked before, so I know your story, but hearing it over again really, it touches me. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Of course.
I'm happy you're here.
Thank you. I am blessed to be here. I'm very grateful to God. It was no one but God that got me here.
Absolutely.
I'm a very true believer of that. And like I said, you really just need to have faith. And that showed me, you know, of course, sometimes you don't know how things are going to play out, right? And I'm sometimes a person that I get anxious about things because I want things to happen in a positive way, even when it comes to my life, right, and other people's lives. But sometimes we just don't know how things are going to play out. But that's where the faith comes in.
Absolutely.
That's when faith comes in.
With so many people passing away from COVID, I can say for myself personally, I've never experienced so much death with people my age. But another thing that I have noticed about people my age passing is that no one has life insurance. Everyone is having to do GoFundMes to raise the money so that they can have a proper burial. Right. What can you do, if elected as delegate, to encourage younger people within your community and your district to get life insurance?
I think it's a great question. I think it's one of those questions that doesn't just touch on life insurance, but healthcare as well, right? Because we have to make sure that our community is educated, right? Our community, they know that resources are out there, they just don't know how to obtain them, right? They don't know how to make sure they find the things that are going to help them now and beyond and in the future. And if someone did pass away, like having life insurance, we need to know how to make sure that our families, our friends don't have to cover our expenses if we do pass away. So for me, doing various types of healthcare campaigns that involve things like life insurance, making sure that if you are dealing with any type of healthcare issues, that goes with it as well, right? So I think in our county right now and in our state, sometimes we don't give a lot of resources to what we should, right? And I think we need to divest more resources into healthcare priorities, and one of that is education campaigns, but also preventative medicine, right? Preventative measures to take so we don't have to deal with the healthcare disparities that we deal with right now, right? That is very huge. We always talk about treating the problem, right? But how about we talk about preventing the problem? If we're going to do that, then we have to pass different pieces of legislation, right? Not just when it comes to healthcare, but economic pieces of legislation that are going to change the way we do things in life. And that is another big policy area that I want to cover, economic empowerment. And that's a very big umbrella, right? But we have to make sure that residents in Prince George's County, residents in Maryland are well equipped to take certain measures so they can live the lives that they should be living.
Absolutely, absolutely. Speaking on economics, I was going to get on this later in the interview, but we can speak on it now. Do you feel that the Central Committee is properly funded so that they are able to effectively educate not just the Democratic Central Committee, but the Republican Central Committee? Do you feel like these Central Committees are properly funded to properly educate the community in which they're serving in?
I think it takes a lot, no matter if you're the Republican Central Committee or the Democratic Central Committee, to educate your county, right, in this case. Do I believe that they are properly funded? Not as much as they could be, but at the same time, I think the Central Committee right now does its best to educate with the means that we do have to educate the public. There are different things, and of course you have to give leniency to the chairs of the Central Committee because they lead the Central Committee, both for the Republican and Democratic Central Committee. But you know, we try to set, on the Democratic Central Committee, we try to set an agenda that's going to help not just Democrats in the county, but all residents in the county to inform them about what are the top issues going on, what do they need to be informed about when it comes to candidates and issues and so forth. But sometimes, you know, you also have to think about, if we inform people, are people actually going to become active, right? Are they going to become engaged? Are they going to take the initiative when they see a flyer or email or any other type of correspondence to really act on it? And that's the other parts of the story, right? Because it's not just educating the public, it's also making sure that the public becomes interested, that they see the need to actually become engaged with whatever the county may be doing, the Democratic Central Committee may be doing, and so forth. So making sure we activate our base, our residents, is very important.
I think that the Democratic Central Committee does a great job when it comes to educating the public on the Democratic Party, more so on a national level, I feel like, but there's not enough, I would say, legwork being done in promoting what the actual Democratic Central Committee is. And the people that sit on the Democratic Central Committee and what people are actually voting for on their ballots. I've asked so many people, I'm in graduate school, so I've asked a classroom full of people, hey, what does your Democratic Central Committee do? And they're like, who? Like, you know, they don't know who's representing them on their Democratic Central Committee, and nor do they know the roles, such as appointments, which is a major thing for the Democratic Central Committee. So here at the Soul of the War, we do pride ourselves on making politics simple, so simple that second graders can understand it, right? So can you first start with the Democratic Central Committee and explain the role of the Democratic Central Committee? So simple that a second grader can understand, and then explain your role if elected as delegate.
Absolutely. So the role of the Democratic Central Committee is to inform the county residents about Democratic goals, right? Democratic candidates and Democratic issues. That would probably be the easiest way to explain it. And I do have to say something, Alexis. I think our former chair, Cheryl Landis, has done a phenomenal job of taking what was the Democratic Central Committee and making it a more known entity in the county, not just on the county level, but also the state level. We have been, from the state party, we have been told many and many times that we have surpassed other central committees in a lot of other things that we have done. So I think it's a constant building process, right? I think Cheryl Landis has done a phenomenal, now delegate Cheryl Landis, has done a phenomenal job of taking us to that next level. And I think we're just continuing to build on that. And that's why I appreciate the work of people that are older than me, right? I was raised by my grandmother, as you know, because we stand on their shoulders, right? We have to continue to push things forward and really get ourselves out there to make progress. When it comes to state delegate, to explain it so someone in elementary school could understand, it's a person that advocates for the needs of not only their district, but their county as well as their state. And a person that puts forth laws to reflect the needs of the community. That's probably the easiest way to state it.
That's excellent. That's actually an excellent way to state it. Okay, so let me read you a quote from Maryland Matters. They said, more than 1 in 5 current lawmakers first took their seats in the General Assembly as appointments. As a Central Committee member, what more do you think you could do to change that as when it comes to appointments and people specifically from the Central Committee getting appointed to seats like delegate, stuff like that? Do you think that it is okay for someone to hold both roles as Central Committee and delegate?
I do not. I'm personally not a proponent of holding dual roles like that. I think if you are in a legislative capacity, such as a state delegate, I think your concentration should be on that, right? I know many legislators, both on the county level and the state level, that have recused themselves from being on the Central Committee. Some believe that it's been a conflict of interest. Others believe that, like I just said, that they should put their concentration on their legislative role. And it also allows other people to get more involved, right, with the party, with what's going on in the community and so forth. So I think it's better to, if you are going to have, those roles, that you pick which one you should go with, right? Most people would go with the legislative role versus a Central Committee role because they can have more influence to do more things in the community. But at the same time, no matter what role you go with, I think you should give all your concentration to it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. Another quote. Well, I won't read the quote in its entirety because we're on a time limit here, but Delegate Regina Boyce, she made a comment about if you are sitting on the Democratic Central Committee, you're almost like a shoo-in for the appointments, right? I have noticed that a little bit more when it comes to PG County, specifically Central Committee. What do you have to say about that?
I don't always believe you're a shoo-in. I think because you work with your colleagues that see you, sometimes every week, at least every month, they know you, right? And they know you personally and they know your work and so forth. I don't always believe that it will always mean that you'll get the appointment. I think people just know you. And of course, sometimes when people know you personally, that can influence their decision, right? It's kind of like if you have a friend that you've known all your life and he or she is running for, or they, is running for an office, right? And, you know, your friend or your neighbor down the street is also running, but you don't know them, you may be more likely to support your friend that you've known for years because you've seen their work and so forth. So I think it's just human nature where if you have seen someone's work, right, and you know what they can bring to the table, and keep in mind, Central Committee members also work very closely with the delegates and the senators, right? So sometimes they not only bring that to the table, but they also, some of the Central Committee members have worked in legislative capacity, such as myself, right? I have worked for the Maryland General Assembly, both for the House and the Senate, and I've also worked on Capitol Hill, and I've also worked for the Prince George's County Council. So some Central Committee members also bring that legislative experience, so people are saying, okay, well, they represent the district already. They bring some type of legislative experience or knowledge to the table. Why not support them?
Yeah, and I can respect that, but I also feel like specifically when we're talking about the race with Rachel Jones and that appointment, you all chose to vote for someone that sat on you all's, Central Committee, and anyone kind of looking in on that, interview kind of is like, Rachel was definitely the best choice for that position. She ultimately got the position because the other Central Committee ended up selecting her, and Governor Hogan decided to go with her. But it's just, situations like that where it's like, it's heartbreaking to see, one, people on the Central Committee voting for themselves is like mind-blowing to me. And then two, it's like, I get it, like we're in PG, like you want to support PG residents, you want to support PG people for a specific seat, got it. But when it comes to the right person, I feel like that nothing else should sway that decision, right? So, yeah. I mean, I'll give you a chance to comment on that, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alexis, I think it goes back to, you're right, I think some Central Committee members do have a preference to pick someone from their county. And I don't want to belittle Delegate Jones at all. I think she's a phenomenal person. She has done an excellent job in her role, and she was a great candidate as well. But I don't want to belittle the fact that Central Committee members in Prince George's County also thought that Jackie McCall was an excellent candidate, right? Keep in mind, she also worked with her delegates and her state senator. So again, it goes back to the fact that it's more than just, a very narrow-minded reason why I should go with this person or that person. You have to see the forest and not just the trees, right? And I think people just sometimes see things that other people don't, but at the end of the day, the ultimate decision is up to the Central Committee members. I know some Central Committee members of the same district vote for the same person. We meet and we vote for the same person. Some other Central Committee members from their own respective districts, they vote for different people. So it's not always the same. It just depends on who the candidates are and so forth.
I appreciate your honesty on that. That whole section and talking about the Central Committee so openly and such a controversial topic. I really appreciate your honesty, your openness about it. And yeah, that's why I respect you, Chris.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, mental illness. So what is your take on mental illness and the increase of it when it comes to marijuana becoming more accessible? When you're talking about things like marijuana psychosis and laced marijuana, with it becoming more prevalent, right? What are you all going to do to tackle mental illness in our community?
That's a great question, and a heavy question. First and foremost, and when you say the community, our community, I'm assuming you're referring to Prince George's County?
Absolutely.
So, of course, we live in a
throughout the state, if you are elected, right?
So, I think mental illness has been a taboo subject for a lot of minority communities,
Yeah.
right? Me being someone that's both African American as well as Latino, I have personally seen it. I personally know that it's just not an issue that is discussed at the dinner table, right? Sometimes it's shied away. Sometimes it's actively not talked about because people, they don't know how to respond to it, how to treat it, what to say to it. The fact is that in some point in your life, everyone, no matter who you are, right, deals with some type of mental situation, mental health situation, if you will. Some of us deal with mental health situations at greater lengths than others, and that can come from your stress from your job, if you do drugs, if you are having a problem with a family member or a relationship. It can come from so many different avenues and reasons, but you're going to deal with it no matter what. And right now, I think we don't actively take a part to find the true solutions that will help us with that. So I think the first step, and even as the Maryland Democratic Party Health Committee Chair, I make sure that we cover mental health because it is such a big issue that, especially during COVID, that so many people dealt with, right? They didn't know how to cope with people dying, right? Friends, family members, neighbors, and so forth, right? And some people, when they don't know how to deal with things, especially their mental health, they take it out on other people, or they go to other things in their life to try to cope with it, right? Sometimes it's alcohol, unfortunately. Sometimes it's other things that are negative. But we need to find more positive things that people can go to. So with that being said, you know, I personally would love, if elected, I would love to sponsor more healthcare legislation that deals with mental health, because we need to make sure it's a topic and it's a situation where people are getting help. They're going to their healthcare provider, or they're going to a therapist, right? Because even Oprah has not one, but several therapists. So if you're Oprah and you have several therapists, you don't think that you, as Alexis Branch and Christopher Stevenson, we can't have one?
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
We need to break down those barriers to make sure that mental health is something that we deal with on an everyday basis.
And I'm a huge, I agree, I guess you can say, to an extent, with everything that's going on with the, legalization of marijuana and all of that stuff. But my concern is that we're so focused on legalizing the drug that we're forgetting the impact that it's going to have on our youth, right? So they're saying, oh, marijuana is about to be legalized, and oh, it's not that big of a deal, yada yada, but for so long we were like, don't do drugs, don't do drugs. But now we're like, oh, once you get to a certain age, it's okay to do drugs. But I think that specifically with my generation, there is a huge issue when it comes to drugs being abused. We look at marijuana as not really an addictive drug, but a gateway drug. But I beg to differ. I think that there are a lot of people in this generation coming up addicted to marijuana. How do you plan on tackling both ends, like satisfying both sides, with the legalization of marijuana, but not pushing it so hard that it's going to be affecting the youth? Right?
That's a great question. I believe that we are going to get to the point where we legalize marijuana, right? And it is going to bring an additional revenue source to not only the county, but the state and so forth. I think I am a very big proponent of looking to see how other states have done it, right? Colorado and other states, California, that have legalized marijuana have actually done a great job, right? And I do think, to answer your question, we're going to have to put certain measures in place where we make sure the people that are purchasing marijuana, if it's for medicinal reasons or non-medicinal reasons, are people that should be doing it, right? And I do believe in having some type of safeguards on that, to making sure that you are an adult, you are someone that if you either need it or you're buying it for recreational purposes, that there is a way to make sure that there's not an overload of it, there's not a the wrong people aren't buying it, especially our youth that are minors. So I think we just have to take proper steps and procedures to it. I am a candidate that's pro-marijuana, but making sure that we do it the right way is always what I vouch for.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
that
you.
response. So, speaking of police, what is your take on Governor Hogan's refund the police bill?
You know, we have a lot of work to do when it comes to police reform. We did a lot this past legislative session, but we have a lot more to do. I just don't believe that we are appropriating the right amount of money in the right areas when it comes to policing. This concept of defunding the police, you know, most people think it's just to wipe out all the money from police funds, but it's not. It's to make sure that we are reallocating the funds in the proper places. You know, Governor Hogan many times over and over hasn't really spoke the truth about what's going on in our communities when it comes to policing. He's not there, you know, as governor, he is very privileged to always have police next to him that are protecting him and so forth, but he is not out there in the streets of Prince George's County and Baltimore where we have, and we're getting better, but we have had a lot of problems with our police departments. So, you know, I think this past legislative session, and I think County Executive Angela Alsobrooks with her measure to find resources and opportunities and spaces to actually fill in the gaps of what we need. I think she's been doing a phenomenal job, but we still can do more.
Absolutely, absolutely. With the upcoming election, we have a lot of conversations surrounding false information, fake information. The NAACP recently just came out speaking out against fake sample ballots. What is your take on that? Do you use sample ballots? And how do you plan on tackling this, you know, false information to voters?
You know, the ballot situation ever since I ran in 2018 has always been an issue. Frankly, I believe there are always going to be different types of sample ballots out there, right? In Prince George's County, the way we use ballots are different than the way other counties use them, right? And I know some counties in Maryland and even outside of Maryland don't use ballots at all. So I think this is a big issue that you have to have a lot of stakeholders get involved with to really tackle it and find a feasible solution to it, because if you don't, you're always going to have your sample ballots from different stakeholders, right? Either sometimes newcomers, incumbents, and candidates that are just, you know, that just got into the race. So I think if we are going to move in a certain direction when it comes to sample ballots, I think it's going to have to be a measure that both people that support sample ballots are going to come to the table with, and people that don't support them come to the table and seeing what we can do.
So you are interested in putting forward a bill to address sample ballots if you are elected?
I think that's definitely an issue we have to talk about, right? We have to see what has come from that and what has been the effect on our communities when it comes to that. But again, that is something that's a very tall order, right? Because you can even put out legislation right now to take away sample ballots, but that doesn't mean that people will abide by that, right? People have found certain ways to either create their own or create fake ones or whatever, and it's a very hard issue to tackle. And like I said, you're just going to have to get many stakeholders to come together to see what we can truly do about that. I know some people in the county, they support it, some people don't, but it's just been an ongoing issue in Prince George's County.
Okay. Well, speaking of fake information and true information, where can they go to find out some true information on you running for office?
Absolutely. You can go to www.christopherstevenson.com, and that's Stevenson with a V. So it has my platform, some of the things that I want to do, my bio, and some of the work I've done. I always say that you shouldn't vote for anyone if you don't know some of the work that they've done in the community, and I've done both work in the community as well as past legislative work. So I am trying to, knock on every door I can. I love talking to voters. It's a personal thing. I love people, so I'm looking forward to getting more questions from voters about my platform and having them join my campaign.
Well, I'm so sorry we have to wrap everything up so quickly. This was an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you coming in and speaking with me and being so open and transparent. And I really continue to look forward to seeing that in your leadership and just continuing to serve your community. So thank you for what you've done and what you're going to do. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexis. My pleasure.